When Life Gives You Lemons is the podcast that speaks to high-performing individuals who have been through adversity but come back stronger. I'm your host, Emma Levy, a physiotherapist who has helped elite athletes on their way to Olympic success. This podcast was born following my own trauma when I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of just 36. Sat in the chemo chair, I set myself the goal of starting a podcast to explore resilience and the importance of mindset. Today I'm welcoming Mollie Pearce to the podcast. You may recognise Mollie from being the runner-up on the second season of the BBC One reality show, Traitors. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched it yet, Mollie lost out on the £95,000 prize money at the final hurdle. But what she's achieved through raising awareness of living with a stoma and limb difference, I'm sure has provided some winning comfort to her. As well as being a superstar on The Traitors, Mollie has worked as a disability model and healthcare assistant, and I'm looking forward to asking Mollie all about her involvement in a new TikTok and Instagram campaign with Marie Curie. Mollie, thank you for coming to talk to us today.
Thank you for having me. Everyone loves to remind me that I lost £95,000 whenever I go somewhere. They're like, yeah, let's introduce Mollie, who lost the show.
I know. And like I said at the beginning, you know, Traitors, it did finish back in January.
Yeah.
So it's not going on, but how can we not talk about it?
I know. It was a very good show. I think, especially in January, it gave a lot of people like a little bit of escape from the winter.
Yeah.
After Christmas, you know.
Exactly. Well, I remember back in the first series, my husband telling me about this new show, and I was like, oh God, that sounds terrible. You know, really didn't want to watch it.
Yeah.
And then we started watching it and we became really, really hooked.
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it?
Oh,
I always
massively.
think you have to get like 2 or 3 episodes in and that's it. Like you're finishing that series.
You're
you know?
hooked. But what was so great about this series, I thought, was, you know, it was amazing that no one suspected Harry at all,
I know.
ever. And am I right in saying no one suspected you? Your name wasn't once mentioned, was it?
No, like hardly. If people used to be like, maybe it's Mollie. Nah. Like they just used to laugh it off like, nah, definitely not. I clearly have that innocent look and face, so maybe I would have been a good traitor. But
did you go in with a game plan?
honestly, it was just to like make friends and be myself. Really? But I think even if you go in with a game plan, like a lot of the time you get there and like all the stress and stuff just, yeah, that goes out the window.
Yeah. How did it actually come about?
So I was contacted on socials for the first season. Not that I was going to get it, but they just, contacted me. But obviously I read the description of the show. I was like, what do you mean we're going to a castle in Scotland? Sounds weird. But me and my partner actually had booked to go travelling around the Greek islands, and I hadn't long had my stoma. I think I was like a year post-op then. And I think travelling for me had always been like such a thing I wanted to do, and like just figuring out how many supplies I was going to need and stuff like that. Greece was like the perfect opportunity to do that, so I kind of put that first and stuck with the plans, and then a year later here we are.
Amazing.
And went on the second series.
And despite the fact you lost, was it an amazing experience?
Yeah, I had the best time, honestly. I loved it so much. As much as it was stressful, like the missions and stuff were amazing, and like the friends you meet is just an incredible experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. So.
And even though it was a game, did you feel betrayed by Harry, who seemed to have a genuine friendship with you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's never nice, but you go in there knowing that could happen anyway, so you kind of have to prepare for it. I think people forget as well, like that wasn't the only kind of betrayal in there. There was a lot of others, and like Miles, I mean, you could tell it broke my heart. Like that episode was so hard, especially after like the funeral episode. It was so dark.
Oh, yeah, that was dark.
But I was like, yeah, that hurt as well. But they were playing the role they were given. So.
Yeah, so a roller coaster of emotions, really. But what you did do amazingly was from the very beginning, you talked about your stoma and your limb difference, didn't you?
Yeah.
Did you kind of go in with the intention of raising awareness, or did that just come about?
I suppose it's a mixture, really. I've always been like open about, well, I say that, no, I haven't always been open about my disabilities. I think since I started doing the disability modelling, that's when I've become a lot more open about things, and I wasn't going to change that just because I was going on a TV show. And I think whether I spoke about it or not, it would have given people like peace of mind, or they would have felt kind of that awareness just because I was someone on TV with a limb difference and a stoma, and I was doing all these crazy missions that everyone else was doing on the show, and I just don't kind of let it stop me.
Yeah, and it's two very different disabilities, isn't it? It's one very visible and one quite invisible disability.
Yeah.
So you were diagnosed with ulcerative colitis when you were 11 years old.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
God, it's a horrible illness, I tell you that much. So my dad actually has ulcerative colitis, but he got it when he was like in his 40s, I think. I was quite young, so I was
genetic?
alive. They're not really sure. I think they're doing some more like tests and stuff at the moment to see if it's hereditary or not, but it looks like maybe it is, unless we're just really unlucky in our family. I don't know. Yeah, so he got it. I just remember being really young and he was unwell, but I didn't really understand it, obviously. And then when I don't know if I was 10 or 11, because it took me like 8 months to get diagnosed, I just started having symptoms. So I had like blood in my stools, and it was actually really interesting. Like, I thought I'd started my period, so I was like, Mum, come look at this. She was like, that's not your period, babe.
Wow.
Like, that's definitely not your period. So we ended up, going for checkups and stuff like that. And it just does take a long time to get diagnosed with these things, because there's a lot of other things that it could be before that. And it got to the point where like I was just so unwell, and I really wanted to go on school camp in year 6. Like, it's a massive thing. And I went to the doctors one more time. They were like, it's an infection, like you'll be fine by next week. Went on school camp, obviously wasn't fine. Ended up kind of like, I think I like passed out when I got home, and we went into A&E. And that's when
because you're losing so much blood.
Yeah, and like even food, you're not taking any goodness from food. The food's kind of going straight through you. You're just very fatigued. It's just the whole mix of everything, really, the pain, like all of it. But yeah. At that point, probably the amount of blood I was losing really wasn't good. And that's when I went into hospital and had a colonoscopy, and they kind of said, it's ulcerative colitis. And we're like, oh yeah, we told you that like 5 months ago, but okay.
And it's an up and down illness, isn't it, where you get inflammation and you get relapses, so you have kind of good moments and bad moments. Yeah,
so you go into remission. So for me, like what it was is you go on steroids to get your flare up under control, and then you go on a treatment which is meant to keep you in remission. But I kind of found that every 6 months I was getting ill again, so I'd be on steroids for 6 months, and then they'd kind of keep me well for 6 months. The treatments weren't what was working, it was more the steroids. And then when 6 months passed, I was unwell again, back on steroids, had the big fat moon face, and it was horrible.
Yeah, because you get side effects from steroids, don't you?
They're awful tablets. They were one of the worst things about it, I think.
Really?
Yeah, because you get like hairy, your face is so fat, all you can think about is food. I remember one time my brother opened a packet of crisps in the like room next door to me. I was like crying. I was like, I want to eat them so bad, but your like emotions just all over the place with steroids. So yeah.
And also, we talk about the invisible illness. Is it people can't see it? So sometimes you must have just felt terrible, but people can't see that.
It's like crazy how much you can mask what you're going through. It like used to make me laugh in school. I used to say, I'm going to the hospital or whatever, obviously for my colitis. And they'd be like, oh, what's that for your hand?
Yeah.
No, babe, they're not growing my hand back. Like, that's gone. That's never coming back. But I think people can see that. So they automatically their brain goes to that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So you were born with the one hand, is that right?
Yeah, so I was born with my hand.
And growing up, did you feel different? Did it bother you?
Honestly, not really. Like, I think I had like an older brother as well. So there was the odd nasty comment, but he'd normally deal with that. And I
thought you were going to say he was nasty about it.
No. Like, I used to copy my brother, so whatever he was doing, I would do. I think that was the best thing about having an older sibling. Like, it made me not scared of anything. And my parents always used to be like, well, if you fail, like, you're going to get back up and try again until you do it. Like, you'll learn your own way around it. And I think like that was the best way to bring me up, definitely. So I went to school like not thinking I was any different, could do everything the other kids could do. I just did it in my own way. And yeah, obviously you get the odd nasty comment, but I had a good group of friends that would like always stick up for me. And yeah, I tried not to let it affect me. Yeah, really.
And it's amazing when you're born with something like that, how you don't know any different, do you? So you just learn how to compensate for it.
Yeah, like people say, oh, what's it like to have one hand? What's it like to have two hands? I don't know. Like, it's no different for me. I think definitely if you lose something or you're an amputee, that's probably a lot harder to adapt just because you know what you're missing. Whereas for a lot of people born with limb difference, you're adapting from a young age. So
yeah. I mean, do you remember there being anything that you couldn't do?
It's a really good question. Honestly, not really. I feel like there probably is like one or two things, which like I used to do gymnastics. I used to just like on the bars hold on with my wrist here.
That's amazing.
So yeah, you just kind of overcome it. I used to lie and say I couldn't play hockey just because they used to make us play hockey at school like in the middle of winter. I was like, I just can't do it. Like they knew I could, but I was like, just can't. But yeah, other than that, like nothing I can think of off the top of my head really.
Yeah.
The only thing I kind of struggle with is now like at the gym is like lifting weights, but you can get straps and stuff. I'm just really stubborn and like I don't
do you not use the straps?
No, I'm just rubbish and I always forget it.
So what, do you just balance it on your wrist when you're using like a bar or something?
Yeah, so like I don't do that many weights really, and if I do, I normally like hold one in the middle kind of thing, so I've got both hands supported. But like if you were holding 2 dumbbells, I'd find that quite hard. Yeah, I have got a grip on my wrist, but it's hard to get it even. Then you kind of feel uneven. But other than that,
but there's loads of adaptations, aren't there?
There is.
I've had Mark Ormrod on the podcast.
Okay.
I don't know if you know him, but he lost an arm and 2 legs whilst out as a Marine, and he does incredible stuff in the gym, and he uses these amazing straps, and you can just adapt. It's fascinating.
There's so much out there now. Like things have come along so far from what they used to be. So yeah, definitely very lucky in the generation I was born in, I think, as well.
Amazing. So you had ulcerative colitis, age 11. You're really struggling throughout your whole teenage years.
Yeah, literally. Like I said, every kind of 6 months. I did have one treatment that worked for me. It was an infusion. So like you'd go in and you'd be on a drip for the day. And that kind of got me through my GCSEs. And I think I had a year that I was healthy, which was like the longest I'd ever gone. And, you know, I actually was having like normal bowel movements, and that had not been the case for a very long time. And thankfully, it was when I was doing my GCSEs, which was amazing. But your body just becomes kind of used to the drug, and then that's it. It's not going to work anymore.
So what then happened when you were 18?
So when I was 18, I remember it was just after my 18th birthday, and wow, even like celebrating my 18th birthday was just horrendous. Like I had such a bad flare up, and alcohol for me did used to like trigger it.
Which is quite common, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I remember going out, and like my friends, one of them took like a spare pair of pants in case I had an accident, a spare dress, like we all had like toilet roll. Like it's so sad to think now that that's what we had to do, and obviously lovely of them that they did that for me. But like as an 18-year-old, if you're going out to celebrate your 18th birthday, the last thing you want to think about is like having an accident when you're out. So after that, I drank that night, and I think that just like pushed my flare up over the edge. And I ended up in hospital like a couple of weeks after, and they were like really heavily pushing the surgery, and I was like, no, like I'd rather die. Like I just remember saying like, this is not something I'm gonna have. And they were like, well, try another treatment. They were pretty sure it wasn't gonna work. And I was like adamant that's what I wanted to do. So I did. 6 months later, I was back in hospital, and I think at that point I just had enough. Like I was just so fed up that I was like, get this thing out of me now. So they removed my colon and left me with a stoma bag. Yeah.
And when you were 18 and you got this stoma bag, how was that for you? Were you embarrassed about it, or were you pretty cool by that point?
I honestly think the beforehand was like worse, where like thought of it and stuff like that. And I just feel like a lot of the things out there, it was a lot of like older people with stoma bags when you'd look into it. Like I never really found someone my age who was like quite open. I used to just think it was for like old people, and I think that's what a lot of people think. And you know, all the videos I used to see, like they all had like clothes on. I would never wear that. I was thinking, God, I'm not wearing that. That's not gonna be my wardrobe. So it's all these things that like there's just not enough like awareness and people talking about it that used to scare me so much, I think. And so I think the lead up was probably harder, and I used to suffer with like a lot of anxiety surrounding the toilet, because obviously if I needed to go, I needed to go, and it was quite urgent. So I think after my surgery, the first time I went out, and I was like, I'm not going to have a panic attack because I'm not going to have an accident. And I think that's when I started to like accept my bag. Obviously body confidence is a whole other thing, but the more like I was living my life with my bag, and it was like giving me that freedom back, giving me like that normal life, I just kind of learned to love it, I guess, and become a bit more accepted of it.
So did it significantly change your quality of life?
Completely, like from 0 to 100, definitely.
Really?
Like, yeah, my life used to literally just be about where a toilet would be. And and just the next time you're going to have a flare up. Like I could never plan things. I couldn't even sleep around a friend's house. And now I just don't even think about those things. Yeah. It's crazy how quickly it can change.
And you talked about travelling. You went travelling with your boyfriend. And was that something you need to put lots of kind of planning into, or is that pretty easy now? You're used to it?
Honestly, not really. Like the only thing is making sure you've got enough supplies. It's just difficult to know how much to pack, and obviously when you're traveling you want to travel light. Having like 60 stoma bags isn't great, but we just split everything, my boyfriend and me, bless him, and my parents actually met us in Crete halfway through and they brought over some more supplies. Well, I thought they were going to need to, but in the end they didn't need to, so we just all went on holiday together, which was nice. But that's the only thing I would say. And like I guess you just don't know with the heat and stuff whether the adhesive's gonna stick as well, and like I was worried about swimming and stuff like that. But overall, like they still lasted me like 2 to 3 days before I needed to change them. Swimming, I can still do that. I think I'm just a bit more cautious, just I worry about the adhesive unsticking, but they're great. Like that's just in my head, really. I did used to swim. I just used to put a band on. So
okay. And then I've heard you say as well, like, you know, even things like in the Traitors, doing all of those activities and showing people that you can do these crazy things with a stoma bag.
Yeah, I think there's like so much stigma around it, and like I said, a lot of people do just think it's the older generation that need it. But yeah, we're kind of showing people that it's definitely not, and you can do all these things with a stoma bag. I thought I could never swim, anything before my surgery. So yeah, I was always worried I wasn't going to be able to eat anything, and I love food, like I'm a massive foodie. So it was a big relief when I realised that wasn't true.
Yeah, sure. Do you know Adele Roberts, the BBC? Well, no, she was BBC Radio 1, wasn't she?
Yeah, I don't know her personally, but yeah.
So she, I think for me, she's someone that's raised awareness in the recent years, because, you know, she had bowel cancer and then she had a stoma bag, and she's named the stoma bag, I think, Audrey. And she talks about Audrey. She was just on Dancing on Ice, and, you know, and also she ran them. I think she got a world record for running the London Marathon, the fastest ever with a stoma bag.
Oh, that's amazing.
Like, you know, all this stuff. And I think what both of you are doing is, like you said, just raising awareness for other young people that are going through it.
I think, and like not even that, like it doesn't have to be our whole thing, like we don't have to always talk about it. Just by being like on people's screens and just normalizing it is changing things. We don't always have to be like saying about it to change things, if that makes sense. Just living your everyday life
exactly
shows people.
But I've seen really cool pictures of you like wearing, you know, really great clothes, looking incredible with your stoma bag. Well,
it didn't change my fashion at all. I remember coming home and like, I think it was like maybe a week or two after surgery, I put some jeans on and like ran downstairs. I was like, Mom, I've got my jeans on. Like, it just felt so good. And like, I started to realise, actually, it just doesn't matter at all. And even if you can see it a little bit, I think sometimes like some of my jeans, it just pokes out the top a little bit, but I just don't care. Like, I just literally don't care anymore at all.
Inspirational for other young people listening to that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I hope so. I hope it puts people's mind at ease, especially when you're younger and you do care about well, I'm not saying people ever stop caring about fashion, but I think especially for like the younger generation, we wear crop tops and stuff like that. Thought that wasn't going to be a thing anymore, but best believe you can wear a crop top or a stoma bag.
So how did you get into the disability modelling?
So I think I was about 17 and I went into a shop and I basically saw a model with one arm, and I didn't have my stoma bag obviously at this point, but I just never thought about modelling, I guess because I had a limb difference, and just never really crossed my mind. And I just remember like seeing that in a shop and just feeling like so seen and saying to my mum, like, she's just like me. I want to do that. Like, I want to give this feeling to other people who have like a limb difference. And that's kind of it. We just started like looking into it a little bit more, and ended up with an agency who were great, and that's kind of where it went. I think COVID was like a massive setback, and obviously that was a difficult time for everyone. But I think it just gave me more time to kind of build my confidence, and I obviously had my surgery kind of end of COVID time, and I thought, well, let's model for that as well, why not? Double whammy, get them both out, isn't it? So
love it. You know, why put someone with one disability when you could put someone with two?
You could have two. I know, what a bargain, isn't it? Price 2 for 1. But yeah, so I think my hand kind of gave me a little bit more confidence when it came to my bag, because I kind of already jumped over a hurdle with becoming a bit more open about my limb difference.
Yeah, we talk a lot about resilience on this podcast. Do you think your hand, being born with that, gave you kind of an innate resilience, that you were already feeling stronger when it came to the stoma, and therefore...
I think probably did. I think like I used to self-consciously hide my hand in photos, like I'd have it behind someone's back or maybe in my pocket. No, because I was like ashamed of it. It's just the fear of like what other people are going to think. And I think when I like got over that hurdle, which was literally through the modelling. I remember the first time I posted a photo with my hand out was when I was doing the modelling. So obviously that was massive for me. And it just, once I'd done it just really wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. Like nothing is ever as scary as you think it's going to be. So when it came to my stoma bag, I kind of just thought, yeah, like I got such a positive reaction from my limb difference. Let's do it with this as well and hope for the best, really.
Yeah. And do you get any negative reactions on social media?
I didn't until the show. I suppose because I had like quite a small account then, whereas I obviously put myself out there. And it was a bit of a shock to the system, I think. I always knew I was putting myself out there and I was opening up to people's opinions and stuff like that. I guess I'd just never been exposed to like that nastiness, especially surrounding my like disabilities. But I let it affect me for a couple of days, and then I was like, wow, it says more about you than me. So
yeah. So you're quite good now at just brushing it aside.
Yeah, I try my best. I mean, obviously, if you read a nasty comment, like you're always going to focus on that one instead of the hundreds of good ones. Yeah. But it is what it is. People are always going to have a problem with something you do. So
it's just terrible.
Yeah.
But I imagine as well, you don't like, your disability isn't everything, and you don't always want it to be about just that. So we discussed before we came on air, you used to work as a healthcare assistant. You're not sure, am I right in saying you're not sure if you're going to go back to that yet?
I'm kind of just seeing what happens. I mean, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, obviously, after the show, and I'm enjoying that. And I mean, like I said, you can help people in a lot of other ways than just working at a hospital. I think with spreading the awareness and the platform I've got now, I definitely want to like keep focusing on that and doing what I can to raise awareness, especially around like Crohn's and colitis, because it's such a taboo subject. No one wants to talk about poo. So I'm here to do that, basically. Yeah. And I mean, I loved my time as a healthcare assistant, but you know, this has opened up a lot of other doors. So just see what happens, I think.
And I wanted to ask you then about this campaign you're doing, this Get Ready With Me campaign with Marie Curie. Can you tell us about it, what you're doing, what it involves?
So they're partnering up with Superdrug, and basically when you buy selected products from a Superdrug store, the proceeds will go to Marie Curie charity, and the charity is for end of life care. And I basically met with some of the nurses who work for the charity, and they are literally like angels on earth. They are so lovely. And we did like a little get ready with me, and we were just chatting about their job role and, you know, why it's so important that these donations get to the charity. And I mean, I can't speak highly enough of the nurses there. I think it's such an important role that a lot of us try to put to the back of our minds. We tend not to talk about death as human beings because we want to avoid it, obviously, and it's not something we're very open about. But with the Get Ready With Me, we kind of want to aim it at the younger audience, because it's such a trend on TikTok that just shows, you know, you can talk about death, and it's actually sometimes a really good thing to ensure that, like, say if someone does pass away, you know their wishes and what they would want, say, for their funeral, how they would like to pass. And I think things like that are just really important, and we avoid them so much. So that's kind of the message we're trying to get across, and just to normalise it a little bit, because it's another taboo subject that we don't like to talk about.
Yeah, well, we're all going to die one day.
That's it. Unfortunately, it affects us all, whether it's a loved one or, you know, you end up in that situation. It's just trying to normalise it and talk about it, just not only to support the patient, but Marie Curie also support like the family members, which I think's amazing, because when it comes to end of life care, it's not only that person who's going through that, it's also their family. I think they're just such an amazing charity. So
I agree. Like, being part of the cancer community, unfortunately, and I've met a lot of people throughout the past few years in the cancer community who all say that, you know, why is death a taboo subject? We should talk about it more. And I've even got a few a few friends that have done them, like an end of life doula course.
Okay.
Which I didn't even know existed. So, you know, when you have a baby and you can have a doula, so the doula kind of like leads you through the birthing of your child.
Oh, I don't have any kids, so I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that existed either until I had kids. But then I definitely hadn't heard of an end of life doula. Mm-hmm. So what that is that's someone who assists you through the dying process. And the people I've talked to have just said, you know, it's such a taboo subject. No one thinks about death, but actually if you think about it, if you plan it, you know, I've even like known people that have kind of had these living funerals.
Yeah. I think like even speaking to the Marie Curie nurses, the way they described it as like such a privilege to be with someone at their last moments, whereas a lot of us think of death as like such a negative thing, but actually for them, like it's such a privilege. And they even talk about like death playlists and stuff like that person plans what music they want on, and I just think it's so nice to give someone that even in their final moments, like they've planned that's theirs, that's their music, they've chosen that. And like the Marie Curie nurses, they just do everything they can to make it as peaceful and lovely as possible. Like they were saying, if it's someone's birthday in 6 months, then that's it, they're moving their birthday forward maybe and celebrating it early, or, you know, even doing Christmas early just so that person can experience it. And yeah, it's such a amazing job role that we just don't think about because we don't want to talk about death, basically. And
quite an emotional campaign to be involved in, I imagine.
It definitely opened my eyes. I mean, I'm probably someone who didn't want to talk about it either, to be honest. So speaking to them has like opened my mind and made me realise it's actually better if we all just do open up a little bit more about it, for sure.
And through the campaign, they're trying to raise £200,000.
Well, hopefully more. I'm hoping
that's
more.
Their target.
I think especially with like Superdrug, we all, you know, go to Superdrug and we get our products there. So just making sure it's from like the Marie Curie selection, it's making such a difference. I mean, we were just talking about like Adele Roberts running the marathon. All we need to do is go to Superdrug and buy everyday products. Yeah. So compared to the marathon, it's so easy, but we can help so many people. So
basically, go to Superdrug, find the products that are supporting the Marie Curie campaign.
Yeah,
help them to raise their £200,000.
Yeah,
which is, I've read that's going to fund 10,000 hours of Marie Curie's vital nursing services.
Which is amazing, right? And I think as well, like, it's such an easy thing. I mean, we all need products, so just go into Superdrug. You know, that's definitely going to help people. So it's such vital care that they give, and if we can be part of that and support that, then good for us.
Amazing. And so where can we see the work that you've done on that?
So we did a Get Ready With Me on TikTok and Instagram, and we just wanted to do like a Get Ready With Me because it's trending at the moment. You know, everyone loves a Get Ready With Me, and just normalising chatting about death, because it doesn't have to be like this really emotional, like deep conversation. It can just be a little bit more lighthearted and not feel so hard, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So again, though, you know, an emotional campaign to be involved in. So I think there's lots of examples we've talked about where you've had to be quite a resilient person to have gone through everything you've been through, you know, even losing out on Traitors.
Yeah, well, thanks for reminding me.
But coming out the other side stronger, you know, that does show resilience.
Yeah.
Are there any specific strategies you've used, do you think, that kind of make you this strong, resilient person?
That's such a hard question. I mean, I suppose like sometimes you just got to give yourself a moment to kind of feel them emotions and be upset about it, and have your time to just be sad, basically. And once you've had your day or 2 days, that's it. You need to snap out of it. You need to come back stronger, because it's not going to help anyone if you're just sat like whittling away, you know? So I guess that would be my advice. Like, definitely feel the emotion. Don't just push them to the back of your mind. Feel it and then try to kind of deal with it.
Yeah, I like to say you can't heal what you don't feel.
There you go. That's a great way to say it. It's way better than how I put it.
And do you do any exercise, any physical coping strategies?
So I've just got back to, I've been back at the gym now for about a year. I think after my surgery, like, I was kind of just enjoying my life completely. I wasn't really thinking about that. And also, like, it does take a while to get your strength back and stuff like that. And I joined the gym about probably like a year and a half ago now, and I just love it. I think it's so good for your mental health. And recently I've been running quite a lot as well, and especially with the weather getting a little bit better.
London Marathon 2025?
Oh, I don't know about that. Maybe a half first. I would love to do a half marathon. I'd absolutely love to, but
I could
I'm
recommend.
not going to sign up to anything
I was
yet.
at the London Landmarks half marathon. I did it this year. It's in March, so just before the marathon. It was a great event.
I bet it's such an achievement.
Yeah.
We're actually doing Tough Mudder. Some of us traitors, some of the traitors family were doing the Tough Mudder, which I think will be really fun, raising money for Alzheimer's. So.
Oh, amazing. When is that?
18th of this month. 18th of May. God, I better get training.
You better get training. Final question, Mollie, I like to ask my guests. If you could go back in time to when things were at their toughest, what do you wish you could have told yourself?
I would have just loved to have shown myself how I've come, I think, and I think I would just tell her that everything was going to be all right, because it just felt at the time like the world was literally ending. So just to say, everything will be all right and the hard times will pass, I guess. But yeah. I don't know. It makes me sad thinking about my younger self, to be honest. But yeah.
And so many people answer that question by, I would just tell them it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
But at that time, if someone tells you it's going to be all right, you sometimes don't even believe them, do you?
Even if I came back, I would from the future, I wouldn't even believe myself. So yeah.
Well, I think you're an inspirational person. I really do.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for coming down today. It's been really, really, really lovely to talk to you. What you're doing regarding disability representation, I genuinely do believe you're going to inspire younger people.
Thank you.
And the Marie Curie thing as well. Really, really great. I can't wait to check it out. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening today to that chat with Mollie. I really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to When Life Gives You Lemons, and come back next week for another amazing guest.